This episode of the Oil and Gas Service Podcast is brought to you by Encino Environmental Services. Now picture this. You're an operator in the oil and gas industry and you're constantly juggling the demands of drilling, production, and compliance. You're going to be overwhelming, right? Well, that's where Encino comes in. Encino is revolutionizing environmental compliance and sustainability in the energy sector. They offer emissions monitoring and tailored solutions through cutting-edge technologies to meet the ever-changing industry standards and policies. Encino offers comprehensive services such as air permitting, stack testing, leak detection and repair, environmental site assessments, and much more. They're like the ultimate support team for your environmental needs, ensuring that you're not only meeting regulatory requirements, but also setting new standards for sustainability. Here's the best part. Encino understands the unique challenges of the oil and gas industry. They know that time is money, and they've designed their services to be efficient, effective, and hassle-free, so you can focus on what you do best: pumping oil, driving growth, maximizing production. So if you're an operator who's looking to streamline compliance processes, minimize risk, enhance sustainability, go check out Encino Environmental Services. Head over to the website EncinoEnviron.com to learn more and just tell them we sent you.
All right, what's up, Digital Wildcatters? Welcome to another week of Oil and Gas Startups Podcast. We got Raul in the shop today from TCES. You're going to tell me in a minute what that stands for.
Oh, absolutely.
But Raul, you where are you in town from? Are you in Houston or?
I'm from Houston. Originally I'm actually born and brought up in Surat, India, which is a small little business town. It's like a monarch of India, basically. Okay. And then I went school here. From there on,
Where'd you go to school at?
University of Houston.
Okay, cool.
Went to a Bauer Business School.
Yep, so you're Houston through and through.
18 years.
And you told me you've been going back and forth between Houston and Dubai lately, so you're...
Yes. It's been a journey there, yeah. I'm still suffering from my last week's jet lag, so...
Yeah, I bet. And so tell me real quick, first, what does TCES stand for? What do you guys do?
So TCS is Transcontinental Energy Services. TCS is a oil and gas service company. Okay. We do everything in terms of completion, everything in terms of production. We've got our own mixing plants. We've got our own workover rigs to drill through well plugs. We've got our own torque and test units, our own flowback, sand removal systems, trucking. Cool. We also, in terms of production, we do, of course, the workover rigs, well testing. So I would say one-stop shop, or I would like to say a full-blown completion and a production company.
Got you. And so let's rewind the story a little bit. Tell me, so you go to school in Houston. How did you get in the oil and gas business?
So I traded in my suit for the pair of FRs. I was in investment banking right after school, formed a packaging company, surprisingly. Then actually went back to India to work as a real estate developer. Okay. Came back around, of course, grew the packaging company. And I think it's early 12, 13, we got into the Transcontinental got into the oil and gas business. And it was a stroke of luck. A bunch of deals were brought to me by my friend here. And
but you didn't want to be on the podcast. You got to give him a shout out. You didn't want to be on the podcast.
and we did the deal, but surprisingly, we lost millions of dollars doing the deal. We got cheated. We got through that rough weather is what I like to call it.
Yeah.
The tuition fees for learning.
Yeah.
There's
lots of tuition fees when building businesses.
We've got a big bunch of it.
I'm right there with you.
It was a Harvard graduation, I like to call it, but and we grew organically. We started with a little mixing plant. From there on, we grew into the torque and test. From there on, we grew into flowback, well testing business, data acquisition businesses, and then we grew into workover rig business, which is about 90% of TCS's revenue today.
Is from the workovers. Okay, cool.
We are one of the fastest growing workover company in the Permian Basin today.
Very cool.
Youngest fleet. All our rigs are 2020, 2021, 2022.
Nice.
By far, if I can say it, we are NOV's largest rig buyer this year.
Very cool.
And it's...
So did you guys, when you started, Did you go start off in the Permian, or where was the wedge for y'all?
We started in Eagle Ford.
Okay.
We did not enter Permian Basin until 2018. Eagle Ford was our birth. Eagle Ford was bread and butter for almost 4.5 to 5 years. We entered Permian Basin just based on some of the Eagle Ford players.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there on, we expanded into Permian Basin. Right now, our 90% revenue actually comes from the Permian Basin.
Yeah. I mean, makes sense just given the activity in that. But yeah, I mean, back in the heyday, you had some overlap between Permian and Eagle Ford operators, like a Pioneer, for example, big operator in both of those. And so you start off with, mixing plants. And, tell, someone's listening and they don't know what a mixing plant is. I'm sure a lot of listeners do, but, tell us what a mixing plant is so that we can, I kind of want to show the contrast between that and what a full-on workover rig is.
So a mixing plant is basically a chemical mixing plant. It's used usually to mix your FR and your gel on location to push it downhole during completions. While you're milling plugs, you need a lot of viscosity and different elements. And to ensure that you have that, you use a mobile mixing plant on location. You mix your FR, you mix your gel, and then you push it through pumps into your into the tanks, and then tanks into downhole.
Yeah.
And
so
it's a size of I would say in general, it's a 80 barrel tank. So it's a size of a cabin of an 18 wheeler.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, when you get done with these frac jobs, you have all of these plugs, and you got to go mill them out. And when you're drilling down there, you got to bring all the cuttings back up holes. So you have to pump sweeps. And
you got a technical definition for that.
No, I looked at. There's one thing I know in the world: it's drilling wells. Okay. Drilling wells and podcasts, and that's my life, baby. So, but the reason I wanted to kind of dive into what a mixing plant is because it's a pretty big jump to go from mixing plants up to full-on workover rigs, right? And so, why did y'all want to go into the business of workover rigs and get into that? You said 90% of your revenue is being generated by that now, so y'all put a heavy focus on that. What was the reasoning for that? There is a bunch of reasons behind going into the workover business.
Number one, workover business was dominated by very older rigs, some extremely large players, some extremely small players, zero technology. So we saw that gap, that spread, which says we bring in the technology, we bring in the brand new units, we bring in that speed to the operation, which made sense to bring it in. Because it was lacking in the workover business until up to 2019, I would say. And for us, it made more financial sense because we're not a company who is here for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and then put it out on the market and sell it and walk with it. We are in for long term. Any business we've done as a company, from packaging to real estate to hospitality, any business we've done for a long term. Long term growth is obviously in a position where there is less barriers to entry. Workover, cold tubing, frac, these are lesser barriers to drilling, these are lesser barriers to entry. And eventually the growth, the size we are looking at within next 5 to 7 years, or we looked at about 10 years from 2019, was in larger businesses, which were larger ticket items, more complicated business, more organized business. And also it made us an ability to provide a full turnkey location. When you have a mixing plant, when you have a flowback, when you have a workover rig, all your pumps, your power spools, your laydown machines, then you can provide a full one ticket item location.
Yeah.
And that was our goal.
I think it's interesting, some of my friends, parents back in the day owned large oilfield service companies, workover rigs that, you're probably familiar with. And I was always fascinated, even when I started roughnecking on drilling rigs out of high school, I'd be out there with the scrub brush cleaning the rig and just thinking about the unit economics of rigs, because I was like, man, how fucking cool would it be to own a drilling rig? And then I knew, man, I'm forgetting their name now, but this workover rig company had started killing it. And I was just like, man, there's got to be, like, I love that business of owning rigs just because it's cool equipment to own. Like, there's something just cool about it. Like, who cares if it even makes money? It's just I got some rigs, you
I,
know. And
yeah,
so
I call it running an ICU.
yeah, yeah. And I want to kind of talk about building a oilfield service company because it's hard. You know, oilfield service, I mean, you got to eat glass and it's just a tough business. You know, like I was telling our team the other day, I'm like, yeah, you know, when you're a OFS hand, like all shit runs downhill. Everything's always your fault. You know, it's never an operator's fault. And so you got to take the brunt of that. And then, you know, there's always, you know, issues with cash flow and getting paid on time. And then, you know, prices for OFS never seem to trend linearly with the price of oil and things of that nature. So it's a very complex business, but one that I've always been fascinated by. Like I'm always like, I want to start a OFS company, but I literally told Jake the other day, you know, it's like, if you ever going through hard times, it's like, hey, it could be worse. We could be running an OFS company. And so I got massive respect for the people out there that do it. But let's talk about like the actual journey and operations of building an OFS, the challenges, you know, being able to stand out in a commoditized type of market, which you kind of alluded to with the technology. But let's talk about all the nitty gritty stuff of running an OFS and the challenges.
I would like to start on a funny note saying all my hairs were black before I started.
Hey,
they're starting to turn all gray.
Yeah, you still got many black hairs though, so it's only about 40% gray now.
It's a journey. We started our journey with I would say 10 employees, 2 mixing plants. I was the CEO, I was the CFO, and there was some other help. Today we are at 220 employees.
Nice.
With a proper flow management, but it's a journey which is very highly capital intensive. It is a journey which requires millions and millions of dollars every week to sustain. Lot of how do you say it? I wouldn't say a lot of babies, but a lot of people who are very needy, and it's a journey which requires a lot of expertise itself. We had to gain a lot of expertise moving over time from mixing plant to all the way to workover rig.
Yeah.
We had a lot of changes in our company. It's almost a journey. It's like bringing up a baby. You start with a diaper. You start with making them walk. You start with feeding them. You start growing them by making them learn their first bicycle ride to all the way to giving a car for college. Same way we started with the mixing plant. We grew the mixing plant business into 7-8 mixing plants. Thereon we went into flowback and well testing business. We grew that business, and then we went into the workover business, which we grew into what it is today. It's gone from a size of a 10 to 50, 50 to 80, 80 to 100, 100 to 150 to 200 to now almost 300 coming up. So it's been a journey full of challenges. Challenges are you're always, of course, short on cash flow, as it is.
Yeah.
Payments from the operator partners are not necessarily late, but they go through their approval processes and they're good.
Yeah.
Those are
that's what, even just forget late payments, but it's just the cash cycles, right? I mean,
absolutely. It's an investment. We have gone through some almost an investment cycle of almost $30-40 million total.
Yeah.
So and this is all organically funded investment. So we don't have a private equity or a
that's
investor
impressive
partner.
Yeah.
So
y'all have any capital partners at all?
Zero capital partners.
Wow. Nice.
This is all ingrown, organically built.
Very cool
operation. And so we've gone through challenges of learning. It's a lot of learning. We've learned how to mill our first plug after being in oil and gas.
Yeah.
We've learned how to send our first sweep after being in oil and gas. We've learned how to hire new people and actually get insurance on board after being in oil and gas. So we've learned at every step of time. A new challenge has always presented, which is a holy grail challenge. And we've overcome that, moved to the next one. What I like to say is to all the entrepreneurs out there is one thing is persistence. You keep on pushing it with persistence, you'll always learn and you'll always go through those challenges. We've gone through challenges of right today. We have top talent in terms of operation and sales and accounting and finance. 3 years back, it seemed like an impossible thing to hire these people.
Yeah.
Couldn't even afford a payroll for them. The whole company's payroll was equal to that one person's payroll.
Yeah.
So couldn't afford it.
It is funny when you look back on things like that, like, you know, you're like, man, my G&A now is insane. And you're like, can't even imagine it being that if you look 3 years back. And so, but it's also cool to take a step back and see how far that you've come, because, you know, at no point in business, it doesn't matter if you're in month 1 or year 7. I mean, you're going to have challenges and you're going to have problems, and you step back and you look at, hey, this is where we're at 3 years ago. You see that you've made progress. And I think it's super cool that you guys have grown within cash flow, and, you know, kind of just surfed over that point. But that's a very important point, because this is a capital intensive business. And even with the proper funding and capital, it's still a really tough business. And so the fact that y'all have been able to manage and grow this thing within cash flow is super fucking impressive. So, you know, kudos on that. But also gives you guys the ability, when you don't have a private equity backer or any other capital partner for that matter, gives you all the ability to be more opportunistic and think on a longer time horizon, I imagine. Is that the way that you've kind of seen it?
Yeah, there's 2 ways I see how we have been able to sustain our growth and develop faster of not having a PE on board. Is we have that independence to take our decisions. Just giving you a simple example, if you're my operator partner and there's a pipe damage, just give an example. Mm-hmm. You can ask me for a $60,000 discount and I can give it to you. If I have a capital partner, I might have to fight you for that $60,000 discount. Mm-hmm. What it does, it puts the $10 million business under a scanner.
Yeah.
If I start fighting you for a $60,000 discount and I have a $10 million business with you, you're going to think twice to give it to me or not again.
Yeah.
Versus if I can give it to you up hand, you'll be like, okay, let's move on to the next pad.
Yeah.
And that has been a lot of our success, is those swift decisions taken in timely manners to actually grow that business. Because we have grown with our customers. Our customers have gone from drilling 20 wells to 100 wells, and we've been with them. The reason we've been able to keep them is we've been able to keep them happy. We both know in an OFS industry, you're going to have issues on location.
Yeah.
No locations are going to be, I mean, there are locations issue free, but there are going to be locations with issues.
It's oil and gas.
It's
one
oil
of the
and
most
gas.
complex operations that there is.
Absolutely.
Right?
You have so much of moving parts.
Yeah.
And this has been a major, I'm not saying that having a private equity is a bad thing on board, but it has its own restrictions. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are your financial partners. They have their goals, they have their independence, and they have their ways of their motivations and their goals. Yeah. Versus what has helped us is not being bounded by those ends, and has given us a great deal of success and a flexibility. And our flexibility has been our success.
Yes, I was going to say, ultimately, what it's afforded you is the flexibility to make decisions and execute quickly and move swiftly. And I think that that's an important thing to talk about. You know, like right now, Digital Wildcatters, we're raising a round of capital, and we've raised some capital previously that just came from friends and family. But you have to really look at, okay, why are we raising capital? Do we need to raise capital? What comes with that? Because there's pros and cons to everything. You know, there's a lot of people out there like, oh, just bootstrap a business. Well, yeah, dickhead. Like most people that say that have never bootstrapped a business, because it's hard. It's hard to do, right? Yeah. And so much easier said than done. But there's, you know, right and there's right capital partners, there's right times when you should raise capital for a business. And I don't think that a lot of businesses you have to go and raise massive amounts of capital for, but hearing about it in OFS is actually pretty inspiring, because I was like, oh yeah, if I wanted to go start a wireline company or whatever it may be, you know, may need to start with a pretty big injection of capital. But I love hearing the story of like, hey, no, we started simple and get a mixing plant, and then you get 5 mixing plants, and then you get workover or flow back equipment. And so that's pretty inspiring to hear someone build out this full service outfit and do it without any capital.
Trust me, it's been a challenge. There has been a lot of sleepless nights involved in it. Yeah. There has been a lot of number crunching, a lot of time on spreadsheets involved in it.
Yeah.
But I would say it is possible.
Yeah.
There is not always a need to aim and say, I'm going to start my company with $100 million in my bank.
Mm-hmm.
You can start with 100,000. You can start with $500,000. You can start with $1 million too.
Yeah.
It's going to be a longer ride. That's all it is.
That's what it really boils down to is patience, right?
Patience.
And it's like, hey, look, over on my side in the tech industry, when it comes like software development, it's like you can go slow and cheap, or you can go fast and expensive. And there's pros and cons to all of these things. So I don't think it's just very binary of one or the other, but I think that there's definitely people that are going to be listening to this and be like, oh shit, like that's actually really inspiring that I don't have to go raise $100 million round of private equity to get something off the ground and started. Some of my favorite businesses, I like to tell people like these stories, like I've known some very successful like casing companies, and they started off with a pair of stolen power tongs that they stole from their last shop, right? So they actually started with less than nothing, just stealing from others. And so, the oilfield service industry, man, it's fascinating to me because there's so many stories of, I can't tell you how many. I probably have more friends that are rich from starting service companies than E&Ps, to be honest, and done really well for themselves. Growing up out in Midland, Odessa, and start up a shop and have just gone about it in a very gritty way of just slow, one brick at a time, and building it over time. And so always just really, really fascinated by these businesses. Tell me about going through like 2020, obviously with the oil downturn, and you said that you're growing with some of your partners. I'd also like to hear like what types of E&Ps you guys really target. But tell us kind of like going through the downturn and how y'all were able to survive and manage during that when there's just so much carnage in the industry.
So 2020 was a very interesting year for us because we grew our employee count by 100%.
Wow.
That's
got to be like, got to be the only OFS company that did that.
we were small enough a little bit at that point.
Yeah.
We grew our revenue by 65% actually that year. We entered into the well testing market starting that year.
Nice.
It was interesting for us because there was an operator called Murphy Production.
Mm-hmm.
We were actually working for them. We were actually rigging up the very same day when the oil tanked to $35.
Wow.
And this were 25 wells for the next 90 days.
Wow.
So it was a very interesting year because for us, why it was different was the reason we were by the grace of God, we were at the right spot. We were rigging up the day the market was going down.
Yeah.
And this were going to continue for next 90 days.
Yeah. So you had 3 months of runway right there.
And this was basically 100% of our people. 100% of the staff TCES had.
Yeah, so you're fully utilized.
So we're fully utilized, and 100% of equipment TCES
Hey, look,
has.
dude, you know what? Sometimes just being lucky is being successful, and you need a stroke of luck every once in a while that you're in the right spot at the right time.
And what happened was once that job ended, we were out west, and we were very efficient because our equipment was completely paid off. We were not leveraged. We were not paying any banks any 7%, 5%, 4%.
Yeah.
And our yards were completely owned by us. So we were not paying any rentals. So for us, it made more sense to keep everyone on board and keep the doors open and keep on working.
What's so funny about that is I've always just been a big believer, and like, trust me, I understand growing businesses through leverage, but it's much harder to kill a business when you don't have any debt.
Absolutely.
and really it becomes kind of a dumb man's name because you're like, hey, look, this is my cost. This is how much revenue I have. And I don't have any, my cost basis is essentially zero. I'm not paying 5% to a lender. And so, but when you go through downturns, guess who survives? Guess who's getting fucking incinerated in Houston right now? It's all of these commercial real estate funds that had floating loans, and interest rates are just absolutely crazy, burning them up right now. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee you there's some old dude out there that owns all of his properties and he's a cash buyer, and he's probably coming in and scooping these things up. That is
exactly what we did.
Yeah.
We bought a rig for $500,000 brand new.
Did you really?
2020. Damn. Brand new rig, $500,000 cash.
That's awesome.
This podcast is brought to you by EnergyX. Are you tired of paying huge rates to the big cloud providers? Are you worried about being booted off a cloud platform if your company doesn't meet their ever-shifting standards? Ready to step up your data security and disaster recovery game? Well, ladies and gentlemen, your new cloud is ready. Introducing xCloud, the scalable, resilient computing cloud that is also actually affordable. It's high-performance compute for half the cost. HPC for HTC. xCloud from Red Team is opening a beta program for new cloud computing customers, and that means you, my friend. The xCloud is powered by the XMDC immersion-cooled modular data center from EnergyX. I've seen this data center in operation, and it is a total game changer. So if you want more information about the beta launch, go to the URL in the description. Type in promo code BETA, BETA, for 50% off of your first instance. And so the URL is going to be digitalwildcatters.com/EnergyX.
We bought more than $5 million worth of iron for $1 million.
Love it.
All cash deals.
Yeah.
So what it did was it gave us a lot of leverage because you walk in to operators saying, I have a brand new equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, cream of the cream operators and helpers were available.
Yeah.
You walk in with that and you say, I'm going to do a job which is going to be 20% lesser than anyone else in the market space.
Yeah.
Because I'm not leveraged at all.
Yeah.
They're welcome to the open
arms. That's a your cost of capital is lower, so you also can just do jobs at a cheaper price as well. So that's actually very interesting.
We did it more efficient.
Yeah,
at a cheaper price. We had that word from
new equipment.
New equipment. Yeah. We had that word from Double Eagle. We did all their 150 wells or something during COVID, and it was more efficient and better equipment.
Yeah,
and a better procedure which we could provide because we were not leveraged.
Yeah.
And that helped us out a lot to grow as a company because we realized the importance of newer equipment, the importance of cream hands, how much efficiency wise it makes a difference on the back end. You have better hands, you have better operators, you have better knowledgeable supervisors.
Yeah.
You're running your equipment down less.
Yeah.
You're charging back less to your operator partners. The second most important part during COVID, and actually overall as a motto at Transcontinental, is honesty and transparency.
I think transparency and just being genuine and authentic in the oil and gas business goes such a long ways. I climbed up the ranks of oilfield services pretty quickly, and I'm just convinced that it was because I was just honest and transparent. Company man asked me a question, and I'm not going to sit there and bullshit them and tell them, hey, look, I don't know, but give me 5 minutes and I'll go figure it out and get back to you. And just having that level of trust and honesty goes such a long ways. And a business is driven by handshakes, and also a business is filled with a lot of shucksters that will run extra chemicals and not tell you.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's our model. Our model is we want to work for a customer for next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever their life cycles are till that time, rather than working for them for 1 year, 6 months, 5 months.
Yeah, and then churning them.
And then trying to find another client.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing you can do to your business.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is all super fascinating because if I was ever to go start any type of OFS business, I mean, this is how I always thought about it. I'm like, man, if you could grow within cash, have no debt, just good. It's kind of crazy that just having good customer service and being honest, so simple to do, and it goes such a long ways, which is just crazy because I feel like that's table stakes. Like I think
it's more an inner feeling, to be honest with you. Being honest and transparent is a more management's inner feeling than the actual numbers on spreadsheet. Because if you set it within yourselves and say, no matter what happens, my losses are my losses. It's not my customers' losses. And I'm not going to make it into a loss for them.
Yeah.
The moment you start adopting that strategy within you, or your management starts starting within themselves, that is when that transparency comes out. And it might be a little longer road, a little tougher road, because your numbers are going to look weaker when you do that. But on a long run, on a spread of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, it's a beautiful road.
That's what I just don't think most people have low time preference, and they don't think on this long enough time horizon to where they think about the big picture. They don't think in terms of 10 years, right? They think in terms of 1 to 2 years. And usually that leads to unsustainable businesses and business models. So, you made a comment too about, having good hands and good talent. I always think about the drilling company I broke out for, Savannah Drilling, back in 2010, they moved down their rigs from Canada. And one thing that stood out to me as I got more experienced in the industry, I didn't know this at the time when I actually worked on the rigs, but how much all of their hands cared, how knowledgeable they were, how particular they were about keeping care of the rigs and maintenance on the rigs. And it's like, man, those hands made everything for that company. And it's no coincidence that we ran circles around all the other rigs on the lease and would drill wells twice as fast of them, because there was a sense of pride among the hands to take care of equipment and be knowledgeable in what we're doing and things of that nature. And so I've always found company culture and OFS to be an interesting topic. This whole debate over the last 2 years about, work from home and remote work and tech, like, dude, I cannot help but roll my eyes, because I'm like, dude, fuck y'all. Like, you have to go sit in an air conditioned office. Like, poor you. Like, OFS hands, you don't have a fuck. You're out there in 110 degrees working your fucking ass off. And, I've had people ask me, like, how would you create good culture in OFS? And I'm like, it's a really good question, because it's tough, right? These are typically hard jobs, labor intensive and long hours. And, for me, it was always like, just having bosses and managers that actually seem to care and give a shit would go a long ways too. And so interested to hear like what your takes are on creating culture at your company and OFS.
So TCES has a culture of a family. Every single hand, every single operator, every single field supervisor, every single management team member working here works as a family. We eat bread together, we drink whiskey together, and we party together and we work together. That's a culture we have. I can tell you, I think every single hand or an operator in our company has probably had a beer with me.
Yeah.
At certain point in Midland.
Yeah.
At certain day.
Love it.
With him or with other management members. We are a very open thinking company too. It's out in open. My phone number is out in open. Other management members' phone numbers are out in open. Any issues, we encourage our people that give us a call. Let us solve the problem. We actually have a very, very less turnaround rate. Our employee retention numbers are pretty good.
Cool.
We've done as far as buying cars to houses, from medicals to just giving paid time off a longer point of time.
Yeah.
We do everything. We are a human company. This comes from, in me at least, it comes from my family.
Mm-hmm.
I was brought up in a family where house was an open access for every employee of the company back in India.
Yeah.
We had set up MRI centers for our employees. We've set up MRI centers for the community.
Mm-hmm.
So that mentality has flowed into the whole TCES system.
Yeah.
I can assure you, any employee with a medical emergency, family emergency, economic emergency will not go hungry from our yard.
Yeah.
That is not going to happen.
Yeah. That's ultimately, at the end of the day, I think what good culture is treating people like humans and treating them like adults, and creating a place that they at least know, like, hey, I'm respected here. It's funny, you talked about having your phone number out in the open. I remember my last company in Venture, not a huge company, I think 200 employees. So, comparable size to you guys. And one of our hands was told to email the CEO and ask him about, like, if this travel expense could get approved or something. And he did that. He emailed them. And the CEO flipped out that one of the project managers was contacting him directly and emailing him. And I was just like, what a pretentious prick to be like, hey, no one from the company can email me or call me, and understand that there's, processes and that need to be followed. But is it really that big of a deal if someone from your own company hits you up on an email? Like, get over yourself. And so,
I got a call yesterday. One of our operators could not get into an ADP app and said, can you reset my password? I said, sure, I can.
Yeah.
I actually did reset for him.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, dude, I'll help you do that. Yeah. Like, I'm going to be a dick to you and make your life harder to operate. So, man, all super fascinating stuff. I don't get to get a ton of OFS entrepreneurs on the show, and I love when I do, because it's like actually a business that I have this weird, sick and twisted affinity for of like, I want to run an OFS company. But I just think that it's, I think why I like it is because, it's a tough and it's a challenge, but it's also just fun because you're out there actually doing shit. And, you talk about getting workover rigs, like, dude, like I just think rigs are cool as shit. I've been on the biggest deep water drill ships in the world. I've been on rigs all over the place, and it doesn't matter what rig it is. I'm like, man, just rigs are awesome. So I'm super jealous that you guys get to run a fleet of them.
We had a very good experience recently. We went to one of the ADNOC's drilling site in Abu Dhabi. Not sure if you're supposed to disclose this or no, but anyway, they built a whole island to actually do a land drilling on an offshore. Where they could have done an offshore, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to see the whole island just manually constructed.
Man-made islands to do drilling. Yeah. No, it's
very fascinating.
It's fascinating the amount of engineering and human ingenuity in the oil and gas industry. Every time I go offshore, especially on deep water drill ships, it's just like, the world needs to see this because this is just insane engineering. And yeah, you talk about making a whole man-made island, this is things that you just like think up.
I always tell so a lot of my friends are in manufacturing.
Yeah.
I always tell them that we make a factory in a day and disassemble them in 3 days.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We make a new factory.
Yep.
We break a new factory. We again make it.
Yeah.
10 miles away.
They're probably just like, it's
like,
funny.
How does it work?
I had a friend, he was a consultant, and all of his work was in manufacturing, especially with like semiconductors and things of that nature. And he came over to oil and gas and just couldn't wrap his head around some of the processes. And I'm like, hey, look, dude, this isn't, a static standalone manufacturing facility. Like these are mobile operations.
Yeah.
And, you need to get a guy like him out on a rig up and put some work in to see how much work goes into moving around. But, for you guys, real quick before we wrap this up, what's your goals, as one of the founders and guy that's leading the charge? What do you want to do over the next, let's call it 5 years with the company?
So TCES for next 5 years is expanding its geographic footprint. More than the service line footprint, we are expanding now the geographic ones. We are in process in establishing in 5 countries in Middle East. Another very important challenge we've taken on is we're actually in a process to bid for a gas block, a complete gas block in India.
Yeah,
it's a 527 kilometer gas block, so about 144,000 acres with the Indian government to actually drill gas wells.
That's crazy.
So we are trying to be an OFS side as well as the operator side in this case.
Yeah.
These are the current projects in mix what we have.
Yeah.
Over the span of next 5 years, we'll be concentrating a lot on carbon net zero technologies, R&D. We've got a sizable R&D team whose sole focus is to work in 2 different divisions for next 3.5 years, which is net zero, saving the emissions for our operator partners, and automation. We are actually in a process to see how we can start eliminating work over hands and operators straight in line.
Yeah.
Not eliminating them in general.
Yeah.
But
getting them off the
basket or the snubbing basket or the floor.
Yeah. That's what's man. All right. Let's take 5 minutes and dive into this. Because what's really interesting is you look at offshore rigs, fully automated, and it never displaced jobs. You still have all your hands out there, but they're out of line of fire and out of harm's way. And so I don't think it's ever, when you talk about automation, it's never something to be scared of, like, oh, like the jobs are going away. Like, no, your job's just probably going to be easier and less dangerous. So that's really cool. On net zero, what do you think the opportunity is on the completion side, like with workover rigs? I've seen a lot of electrification of like wireline units and frac fleets. Is there any opportunity there to do that?
So actually, we're in the process with one of the manufacturers to start building electric workover rigs.
Man,
We have figured out the power generation side of it.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
We are working actually on the motor side of the things right now, which we know we are done on that R&D phase where we know we can run a workover rig actually electric downhole.
Yeah.
But the process now to be what we are in the process to figure out is how to run them on the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I can take a Tesla and put a workover rig on it.
No,
so.
no, you can't.
So
you know, that's what I've seen, you know, like in wireline, you know, they're taking, you know, essentially, hey, you drive the truck out to location, it's diesel, but then you bring out a battery pack and run it off electricity. And then starting to see these hybrid wireline trucks where you got battery built in, but these trucks are huge. And so that's what I was like, you know, can you still drive it out there diesel and take a battery pack, but makes perfect sense. It's like, hey, as long as you figure out the power generation side of it and you can run it. But imagine that'd be crazy. Like think about a quiet rig so the
standalone stubbing units, we're finishing the R&D. We're about 6-7 months out on an R&D. We're actually launching in standalone division completely.
Cool.
And we will start with all electric. The whole units are going to be electric.
The whole thing.
For the pumps and everything.
Cool.
So it's going to be, it's in.
I want to come see that when you guys get it put together and operating. I want to come see that because I think that's really fascinating. You know, sometimes I'm like, man, I kind of, you know, remember like late nights on a drilling rig, like all the noises put you to sleep, right? Like that's how, like there's something about, you know, the brake handle and just the diesel's running. And
so I've ran by some of our operator partners, and the $1 million question is, how am I going to figure out if I don't hear my pump?
Yeah, that's 100%. How are you going to know if something's wrong? Yeah. That's when you know something's wrong because like, hey, there's something that sounds different. Why is, you know, pump 2's offline? and that's such a real thing too. Yeah. And so that does not surprise me that's some of their feedback is like, how
there's two things you can do, right? Either you can have an all electric silent one, or you can have a pump noise. I can provide you with both, but that's all I can do.
That's so funny because
cannot change the gravities there.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. So, well, no, that's super cool, man, and just fascinating story. Like I said, super impressive what you guys have built, and I'm sure that a lot of people that are listening to this are going to think the same. So if you guys are listening to the show and you want to work with a badass OFS company, hit them up. Where can they find you guys? Do you have a website? Are you on LinkedIn?
TCS.US is our website.
Cool.
We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. We're all over the social media.
Awesome.
We are a well-marketed company thanks to Mr. Tim Taylor.
Oh, Tim Taylor works with you guys. Okay, cool. Shout out to Tim and Midnight Marketing. Yep. So cool, man. Well, we'll leave some links in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out, just click the links. And dude, thanks for taking the time and coming in and doing this.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Colin. Thank you.